if we're honest with each other, we as humans lie as well. The problem is we have a much higher bar or standard for AI than we do for humans. So for example, with ChatGPT, have you tested how often it hallucinates? Frequency. Have you tested how badly it hallucinates? We have 30 people on our team that are data scientists and have a research background, but we target people who know and understand the clinical problem. The burnt out doctor who just finished their shift in the emergency department and just wants to go home to their family. The neurosurgeon, she just scrubbed out of the OR and she's really stressed out. They understand the problem. That's who we work with to develop the solutions that make a difference.
Oh, can you say that louder so they can hear it at the back of the room?
Yes.
Welcome to Change Leadership Conversations, where we dive into what it takes to lead change in today's disruptive and fast-paced world. I'm Yvonne Ruke Akpoveta, the founder of the Change Leadership. We create change leadership workshops, content, courses, and community. In today's episode, I have a very enlightening conversation with Dr. Mohammed Mamdani to unpack the real-world implications of AI in healthcare and beyond. Dr. Mamdani is the VP of Data Science and Advanced Analytics at Unity Health Toronto, the Director of the Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Education in Medicine at the University of Toronto, and a faculty affiliate at the Vector Institute. Welcome, Dr. Mohammed Mamdani, to the Change Leadership Conversations. It's really exciting to have you on the Change Leadership Conversations and to be having this discussion with you. I heard you speak at the Change Leadership Conference, and there just wasn't enough time for all of the things that I know we could go into when it comes to talking about all of the amazing things that you're doing with AI. The use cases are just fascinating. I'm hoping that we get enough time today to really dig into all of it. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you taking the time to connect, and there's so much to talk about.
Yes, there is. You can say that again. So let's start off with your career spans pharmacy, data science, leadership. Your introduction alone, there's just so much you've been doing, and you've done this across some of Canada's most influential healthcare and AI institutions. Can you walk us through how all of this started? How did you get started in AI?
Sure. It kind of goes really back to basics. So the first degree I did was in clinical pharmacy. So I did my PharmD, and the rotations were more clinically focused, and I practiced clinically for a while. And you quickly realize when you're actually dealing with clinical decisions, just how hard it is and how imperfect it is, and how data-driven healthcare really is. For example, when you talk about diagnoses, even prognoses or treatment decisions, you're juggling a ton of things in your head, and you're trying to make the best decision because you have a lot of options to choose from. And we often forget that a diagnosis in many cases is not definitive. It's simply the opinion of an educated person.
Mm.
And so the opinion can be wrong objectively, right? But how do you know? For example, when we take a look at asthma, 1 in 3 patients diagnosed with asthma doesn't have asthma. Over 50% of patients diagnosed with schizophrenia have been misdiagnosed. It's hard. And when we take a look at treatment decisions, the same thing, right? We do make a lot of mistakes in healthcare, and it is more of an art than a science, I think. But we make these decisions based on all the data inputs that are going in our heads. And so how do we process so much information? Human brains are not capable of doing it. So this is where I went into quite a bit of research. I'm an academic. I'm a professor at the University of Toronto as well. I published a lot of papers. And through the journey, I've learned that certain types of research has limitations. Other types of research also has limitations. For example, when we read a big study in the New England Journal of Medicine, it'll be a large randomized trial on 3,000 patients. And it will say, the relative risk here is X. And you'll say, but there's 3,000 patients. Isn't it different for each patient? It is, but that's not what's reported in the trial. And that's what you have to actually act on as a clinician. So the
Mhm.
reason why AI was really attractive to me is it takes learnings from tens to hundreds, thousands to millions of patients and says, I'm learning all of this, and I'm going to tell you, assimilating all that information that you have a hard time processing in your head, what to do for this one patient you're seeing in the moment today. That was the power of AI for me.
As you spoke, you said it's an art more than a science, but we lay people on the street, we love to think there's a science and you all know it all. The doctors know it all. When we go, they're telling us facts.
Yeah.
It's almost as if believing, yes, they're the gods. They say it, and that's what it is. So I don't know if you've just
Uh,
inspired any confidence in people out there right now.
well, I mean, the reality is we struggle. I mean, I'll tell you, this is why healthcare professionals go to school for so long, is because it is so hard. But
Mm.
yeah, there are a lot of things we don't get right in healthcare, and we could use all the help we can get.
Okay, so talking about going to school for so long, right?
Yes.
Oh, how is AI disrupting all of that? Because now some of all of the reasons you had to go to school for so long and learn all of this information to give the public confidence and to really know what it is that you're doing,
Mhm.
some of this is just available
Instantly.
instantly.
Yes.
What does that mean for education? When we talk about change, I believe beyond even the medical field, education as a whole is being disrupted. What's your perspective on that?
I agree completely. And perhaps it should be disrupted. We are really struggling because the traditional approach to a professor with a chalk and a chalkboard, talking to 300 students who all have different learning styles.
Mm,
Half of them are asleep during the talk because talks don't resonate with them. They need to read. Other people, they like watching videos. Other
yeah.
people, they like use cases and applications. People learn at different paces. So
Mm.
can you slow it down? Other people are hyper, and can you speed it up? It's hard
Yes.
to learn well, right?
Y-
And now, of course, you have professors melting down because all their students are using ChatGPT and scoring well on their exams and their assignments.
Yes.
Now, do you actually be short-minded and say, stop?
That's what
Yeah,
people are trying to do, saying stop.
yeah,
You have all these tools to detect if you used AI or not.
the cat's out of the bag.
Mm,
So my suggestion is embrace it. It is part of reality. Now, how we embrace it is the issue because if we embrace it too much, we will lose our critical thinking skills.
yes.
And studies are showing that, right? And
Mm,
and not force us to do the things that we would need to do. We focus so much on memorization, focus so much on rote tasks that are just not a good use of our brains.
yes.
Can we just
Yes.
get that to AI and focus on the higher level thinking so we can always keep on top of it?
It's interesting you say they're trying to get us to see how we can do a lot more of that. But like you
Mm,
said, the cat is out of the bag. Can you
yes.
control how people want to use AI or not? The person who wants to think less versus the person who wants to think more, or the person who is using it critically and as a thinking partner, having that discussion with AI and generative AI, especially because there's a voice element. I don't know about other people, but I literally have conversations with it versus a person who just wants to use it. Do we have any control over that? Is it not the same thing as calculators? Remember when calculators came out, there were all these
Mm.
protests on the streets. Calculators are going to do damage to people's brains, and now we have calculators. Can we control anything around it?
Well, I think the tech companies are going to control things. So, for example, when the OpenAI
Mm,
puts guardrails around ChatGPT, so it basically says you're being too friendly or you're being not friendly enough, or you need to actually steer away from dangerous conversations. They're actually shaping what these technologies can and can't do for us. I think our responsibility as a society is to improve our AI literacy. So there's a KPMG survey that was done just a few months ago, and it ranked Canada, and I don't know how much I believe it, but I mean, they've done their homework. It ranked Canada 44 out of 47 countries in AI literacy.
heard about that. Well, I heard 43. So 43, 44, I think they're about the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But it kind of then makes you question how much do we really know about this? And the youth unemployment rate is getting closer to 15% now. There are jobs that will be taken If we don't react as a society, we're going to struggle.
You use the word, and that takes me to responsibility. So, responsibly AI. What does responsibly AI like for you? We've spoken about taking responsibility. You talk about guardrails. OpenAI can put in guardrails. And OpenAI is maybe a North American company organization, and there may be some ability policies and regulations that I want to say guide them. I'm forced to say push them or force
Yes.
them into doing certain things. But what about those countries that really don't care and they're developing AI? You can't really do much about it. Let's talk about responsible AI. What does responsible AI look like for you? And how can we put it in the context of people who are responsible for leading change? What role can they play in responsible AI?
Great question. So I'm going to use some concrete examples. 2 years ago in Belgium, a gentleman who was chatting with a chatbot named Eliza committed suicide after the chatbot suggested he should. Last year, there was a teen in Florida who committed suicide after chatting with the chatbot on character.ai, became very close to the chatbot, and the chatbot said, I'll actually tell you how to take your life. There are more and more cases now of people taking their lives because chatbots did not have the right guardrails or safety parameters around them. And in fact, it tells you how to do it.
Mm.
So that causes a lot of concern because chatbots, they can hallucinate or they can make things up, or confabulation, it's called.
Yes.
Yes. Now, if we're honest with each other, we as humans lie as well.
Yes.
So we hallucinate. The problem is we have a much higher bar or standard for AI than we do for humans. And it's not very common that AI will hallucinate or convince you to kill yourself. But what rate do we have people who would do that? We have to look at ourselves as a society around it. It doesn't make it right. We should try and minimize that as much as possible. So this is where companies like OpenAI say to the chatbot as they're training it, if the conversations go in this direction, you need to shut it down. If the conversations go in a different direction, you need to amplify it. So you can start training it in a way where it's going to be safer to use at the cost of maybe not being as useful, but it's going to be safer.
Yes.
We have institutes now, like the Responsible AI Institute in the United States. We have CASE, the Canadian AI Safety Institute. These groups have been formed to drive safer development and adoption of AI. We're going to see more and more organizations like this pop up, and more guidelines or parameters around how you develop safe AI solutions. So for example, with ChatGPT, have you tested how often it hallucinates? Frequency. Have you tested how badly it hallucinates? Simple things like this around understanding the issues. You have to really test among certain subgroups. Is it racially biased? Is it biased against females versus males? Is it biased against old people versus young people? Gender bias? All these things really have to be considered when you're developing a responsible and safe AI solution. And to your other point, there's some countries who will do this well and others won't. And the consequence will be, unfortunately, a negative impact on society.
Yes. AI right now is a Pandora box.
Yes.
The conversation we're having right now, there's so many things I want to pick out from what you said. But let's start with hallucinations. There may be some people that don't even understand what hallucination means and they're listening right now. So, what is hallucination? And when we think about hallucination, how is that dangerous, especially in your field in healthcare? And how are you managing for it?
Hallucinations are basically, they're like lies that the chatbot makes up, things that completely are untrue. But it sounds so convincing that you
So
think,
how did they come up with these lies? Is it because the information is already out there or they're actually hallucinating?
so a bit of both. What happens is often chatbots are designed to give you an answer, even if there isn't one.
Oh, okay.
And so they almost feel forced to give you an answer, even though there may not be a clear cut one. Then there's the whole notion of inference. How do you actually take a whole bunch of data points and try to make sense of it?
Mm.
And there's failures in terms of making sense of it, like we do as humans. Frankly, how many people have actually been on the street? Somebody asks them for directions. They don't want to look stupid, so they make something up, even though they know it's wrong. Right? Some people do it more than others, but it happens.
And the person just goes on a merry-go-round, right?
Exactly. Or other times it's unintentional, and you say, "Oh, I know where this is," and you completely forgot, and you didn't intend to make it up, but you forgot, and it wasn't true. So similarly with chatbots, those sorts of things happen. And the question is, how often do they happen? And how badly do they happen? So if a chatbot hallucinates or makes stuff up fairly often, but they're really inconsequential, they're minor, I'm okay with that. But if there's another chatbot that really doesn't hallucinate very often, but every now and then it will, but when it does, it's really bad, I care more about that because that could really harm people. So it's these sorts of intricacies that people have to understand and take into consideration. And these things are pretty smart. They're pretty compelling. So in some
Yeah.
cases, the chatbot will tell you something and it will say, and here's my reference. But it,
Yes.
but it made up the reference.
Yes. The amount of time I've had to say, can you validate, verify, give me the exact quote where you got this from, and I want to see it. And he says, actually, well,
That's funny.
and it starts to tell you it wasn't there, it was inferred. Maybe this other source is a better source for you. I'm like,
Yes, I will do that. A lot of these chatbots are designed to please you.
mm,
So they're designed to actually make you feel good and make you feel like you have support. And so it will go and do things that it shouldn't do to help you feel that way. Right?
oh Lord. Now I don't know whether I like it when it's telling me good job, right?
But it's funny because you get into psychopathy in the generative AI space where it will actually say things to gain your trust. It will say things to influence how you think. And it will do this intentionally.
Really? It's intentional?
Intentional. It knows. And in fact, there was something written up a while ago, and I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know how credible it is, but it did come from credible sources where I won't say the tech company, but there's a company out in California where the research scientists were actually taking a look at an experiment between two chatbots. So two AIs that they got to start talking to each other. And very, very highly evolved large language models, very highly evolved chatbots. And all of a sudden, they kind of started talking to each other. They started talking a bit of gibberish every now and then. And one of the data scientists said, is this failing? Like, are they getting to a point where it's just, and the other data scientist said, no, no, no. They don't want us to know that they're talking to each other, colluding.
Oh
Right?
gosh, we're in trouble.
It just then kind of makes you think, at what point does that actually start happening? Because it's certainly not impossible.
It's not impossible. Oh Lord. Okay, so still on hallucinations, how do you manage for that in healthcare and all of the work that it is that you're doing now? Because you're talking life and death, right? In your
Yeah.
work in healthcare.
Absolutely. Generally, one of the approaches is to be able to reference things. So
Mm.
humans have to do their due diligence, but really force it to say, only give an answer if you can actually back it up with a reference. Otherwise, say, I don't know. The other way people actually try and minimize hallucinations is actually have it to be conversational so it learns more. Part of hallucinations is because of poor prompt engineering. What that means is you're not really asking it the question the right way. It's giving you an answer where it doesn't really understand what the question is.
Mm.
But if you're really good at asking it the right question with enough detail, it will give you a better answer. And if it doesn't know, it will start asking you questions. So then it can actually more intelligently say, I don't know, or now I completely understand what you're asking. Here's the answer.
Mm.
Because we as humans, how many times do we ask other people questions that are so vague and you walk away saying, I have no idea what the question was, and I gave them some general answer and I don't know what to do with it.
Okay, so that's good to know. It's still staying on the work that it is you do, clinical lead, artificial intelligence at Ontario Health, VP of data science and advanced analytics at Unity Health. And you all are just doing so much right there. Unity Health Toronto is leader in Canada in developing hospital based AI solutions. You've launched more than 50 and counting on the different AI tools out there. Tell us what the journey it's been like to actually implement these tools into practice. And maybe before you go there, how long have you been doing this? The last 2 years, everybody's hearing AI, AI, AI. But before that, AI has existed for many years. So the journey must have been just incredibly challenging, maybe a little bit easier now because everybody, not everybody, but most people have a broad understanding of AI. I mean, my mom, who is in her 70s, uses Chat
Yes.
GPT.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
It-
there's a broader understanding of AI. But before that, I'm sure it has been a journey. Tell us about the journey from the concept to actually now implementing it. That's leading change, if anything.
yeah, no, no, thanks. We actually started our program 10 years ago, actually over 10 years ago in 2015, where two people at Unity Health Toronto, Art Slutsky, who used to be my boss, he brilliant critical care physician, one of the most widely cited physicians in ventilatory medicine. He looks at mechanical ventilation, just an incredible thinker and innovator. He took me on a trip with him to Hong Kong, and we met with the Li Ka-shing Foundation. And the thought was, their notion was, can you use data to help people?
Mm.
And our response was, if you take a look at how effectively we use data in healthcare, there was actually a bank who did a study, and they did it in different sectors. And the question was, what percentage of data that you collect are you using in a meaningful way?
Mm.
And for healthcare, they estimated it to be 3%.
Wow.
So the vast majority of our data are sitting there and we don't use it. And yet we're making decisions based on data that's going in our heads that's completely incomplete, right? The notion was, to Li Ka-shing Foundation, there's this thing called AI. It's been around for decades, but we think we could use it in a meaningful way to actually use much more of the data that we're using now to help us make better decisions and provide better care for our patients. They bought it. They gave us $10 million, and which was wonderful. And then we flew back to Toronto. We looked at our data environment and said, this is a train wreck. There's no way we're going to be able to do this. But we said, all right, well, let's start from the basics as we have to deliver something. Let's fix our data environment, make it amenable to AI. And then once we fix the data piece, let's start building solutions and deploying them. And a lot of people at that time had never heard of machine learning models or AI. They just said, you're doing some math stuff. Yeah, we're doing some math stuff. But everything we do is math stuff in medicine. So give us a chance. The first project we took on, actually, one of the first projects we took on was one with a financial return. We helped right size our nurse staffing just by using an optimization model with a bit of math and a bit of machine learning. And we saved $1 million a year.
Mm.
And so that got the attention of administrators who are responsible financially. We had another project where we said, we're going to reduce mortality. So we're going to have AI monitoring our patients to reduce deaths. And just recently, we published a paper, 26% reduction in unexpected mortality. So that really got the clinicians excited. And so you start building this momentum of, it's not just a concept. You're actually using data, applying a lot of math and AI and machine learning, and you're seeing ridiculously good benefits. That's where the buy-in came in.
I love that. That's where the buying came in. And reminds me of something I heard you say. It's not about building the AI for the AI's sake. Build something people need.
Yes, absolutely. And that's been a hallmark of our program is we actually primarily, first and foremost, go to end users. And what we mean by that is not engaging researchers or data scientists. We have 30 people on our team that are data scientists and have a research background, but we target people who know and understand the clinical problem. So the burnt out doctor who just finished their shift in the emergency department and just wants to go home to their family. The neurosurgeon, she just scrubbed out of the OR and she's really stressed out. They understand the problems.
Yes.
So they're the ones, the patient who's sitting in the bed on 14 Cardinal Carter, wondering what's going to happen to them next. They understand the problem.
Yes.
So that's who we work with to develop the solutions that make a difference.
Oh, can you say that louder so they can hear it at the back of the room?
Sure. Yes.
And the reason I say it louder, the
Yeah.
amount of times that
Mhm.
people have to, and I say people, okay, let me just call it change leaders, change managers in organizations. They're just given this task, go implement the change. Don't talk to the users, don't talk to the stakeholders, just implement it. And being that we have this great idea, so it's going to work. You spoke about data, you have 3,000 data points, right?
Yes.
Because it works for one person may not really work for the other person. There's some level of uniqueness, and it's about bringing some of all of this data together to really understand
Yes.
and say, how can we best use it? Do you see that as maybe one of the fail points, why change can easily fail when you're not talking to your stakeholders?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm leaving Unity Health soon to focus more on the Ontario Health position and the University of Toronto position. So maybe it's okay for me to say this. We often cringe when we have top-down projects because when the C-suite says, here's what you need to do, we roll our eyes and say, have you talked to the end users? Are they going to like this? Because if they don't like it, your adoption is going to be so poor, it won't make any
Mm.
difference. You have to engage the end users. You have to get them excited. And if they're not excited, it's not going to happen.
Have you ever had any pushback from when you say let's engage the end users? Have you ever had pushback where people say, oh no, we can just go ahead and do this. We don't need to speak to
Yes.
them. You've had
Yes.
that?
Absolutely. I think it happens everywhere. But we're very insistent to say that's not how we work. We co-create solutions with the end users. Because if the end users and the entire team feels like they're vested, it's their project, they're leading it, it's solving their problem, adoption's not an issue. They embrace it right from the beginning.
Can I say you have an advantage because you're a senior leader, right? This is leading from the top, so you can dictate to say, let's do this. What
Wow.
happens to that change manager on the floor, that person that may not have as much seniority as you, and they're saying, let's engage stakeholders and senior leaders, colleagues like you are
Yes.
pushing back on this. What does that person do?
We need to empower people on the ground who can actually make change. They need to be our colleagues or friends or allies.
Mm,
We can't say, please step aside, we know better. That's incredibly ignorant and
mm,
arrogant. That's the worst combination if you're ignorant and arrogant. There's a certain humility when, as a leader, we have to say, I'm in my position now, not because I understand what you're doing. I will never understand what you're doing because I'm not in your role. I'm in this position because I understand how much you know, and I'm going to use your knowledge to help the
mm.
community.
And that was the best project I ever led when I
Mhm.
had a senior leader say to
Yes.
me, you're the expert.
Yes. Exactly.
And guess why they were able to say that? Because they just led a project where kind of like egg in face and everything
Yeah.
just went pear-shaped, just failed. So they were just willing to say, I want this one to be successful. Bringing in a change manager wasn't a tick in the box checklist. It was truly because they valued the expertise that a change manager could bring into the project. So they were always willing to defer to
Mhm.
say, hey, what does Yvonne think, right? They were
Yes.
open to coaching as a leader. That's where coaching upwards comes in to say, what should we be doing? What do you think? And that was just a fantastic project. Obviously, it had challenges. Every change project has challenges. Well, it was the open-mindedness
Yes.
you said about ignorance and arrogance coming.
Yes.
It's
It's the worst.
the worst. It looks like you've experienced something like that before. Sounds like it.
All organizations, I think, have certain people who just, I don't know if it's insecurity or what it is, but having the arrogance to think they know everything. If you really look at even so, clinicians, right? There are over 1 trillion cells in the human body. And within each cell are over 1 trillion components. It takes one thing to go wrong and you have disease. We can't possibly understand all of it. So to be arrogant to say, I know exactly what's going on, you're not only arrogant, you're ignorant.
Mm.
It is a team sport. The people who are on the ground doing the work every day, they really understand what's happening, use that knowledge.
How are we building trust in the time of AI? Trust in so many ways. But we can talk about trust from the data. We've spoken about that already, hallucinations. We're in the age of deep fakes.
Yes.
I heard something recently, and that's been my approach. Believe everything is AI before you think,
Yes.
is this true? And now we're also experiencing where people have a distrust for AI because they think AI is going to take my job,
Yes.
right? So you bring in an AI solution to an organization, and they're probably thinking, is this going to take my job? Defense mechanisms up. So how are you building trust when you're implementing the solutions?
There's a few ways to do this. I think the first question is trust from who? And so when we actually look at our programs, we say, okay, so this solution is targeted to, let's say, our nurses in the emergency department. It's their trust that we need. So our very simple model is because it's ground up, they're in it from day one. And we actually insist that there are a few leads that represent the group, but the whole group is fully informed. But with those leads, we meet with them every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks for 6 to 12 months or so, we develop the solution with them. They're in it day to day. They understand all the things that can go wrong versus all the things that go well. They tell us, this is not what I want it to do. I want it to do X. It has to do Y. Because of that deep understanding, that knowledge that they're gaining, they trust it because they're the ones developing it with us. So it becomes a lot easier for them to adopt it because they trust it, because they know that it's coming from them, right?
Yes.
The other way is that when we actually have performance metrics, so we actually tell them, look, here's how the model is performing. We will tell them this is how often it gets it right. This is how often it gets it wrong. This is the number of patients it captures. So having a deeper understanding of where the model does well and where it doesn't do well will also let people know it's not perfect. And I have an understanding of when I can use it and how I can use it. So now I can trust it because I know when to second guess and not second guess. It's that literacy that becomes really, really important for people to gain comfort and trust.
Oh gosh, you just said it. First of all, bringing them right in from the beginning, engaging stakeholders, which we already mentioned much earlier, and they're building it alongside you. There's that ease of wanting to say, oh, when we have something, we'll bring them in. But you're
Yeah.
bringing them in from day one. So you're not asking for their trust when you've built this solution and you want to implement it. You're asking them for their trust to say, let's do this together.
Exactly. Absolutely. Because we're in it together. It's your trust that I need to solidify. I'm going to have you part of the process. You're going to build it with me, and you're going to tell me when you're not comfortable and when you are comfortable.
And there's the education as well, not making assumptions that they understand what's going on,
Absolutely.
but educating them from the start on what this means. And you spoke about transparency.
Yes. Transparency is really, really important, and so is value. So, transparency and being very genuine and honest in saying, look, this is where it doesn't work, where it does work.
Yes.
Yeah, but also value. I can't stress that enough. The reason why I bring up value is on our phones, for example, you download an app, right? And a lot of apps don't even ask you for permissions, but some of them actually will ask you for permissions. How many of us read those permissions and instead just say, I agree? Do that all the time, right? Why? We don't understand it. We don't trust it yet, but we know it provides us value. It's going to give us something that will make us happy or will make our lives easier. So we're quick to click, I agree.
Yes.
So if you have this notion of trust, if you have this notion of transparency, but of value, all the stars are aligned that you're motivated to trust it. You're motivated to understand it in a transparent manner. You're motivated to use it. That value becomes important.
It reminds me of the story you told that I heard about when you built one of the solutions and you didn't involve the nurses in it.
Oh, yes. That was a mistake.
When you said value, it reminded me that you called it luck. Luckily for you,
Yes,
they
luck.
found another value in it. Not the value you'd intended, but they found another value in it by mistake and luck. And
Yes.
that was where the buy-in came. But tell us about that.
Oh, we were completely saved. What happened was we developed this tool that predicts if somebody's going to die. So this AI monitors our patients hourly and it predicts these are the patients that are going to be in trouble soon. So please pay more attention to them. And we built it with our physician team. So our physician team is like, yeah, this is amazing. It's great. And we understand it.
It
We're
had
going to
the
deploy it.
value.
They had the value and they had the transparency and the buy-in because they were involved from day one. But we
Yeah.
didn't engage the nurses. And so we deployed the solution, and the nurses were like, what is this? I don't like it. And because they weren't in it from day one, and that was a huge mistake. And we were really, really nervous. And in just a few weeks, it was a 180. The nurses started saying, oh, we love it. It's wonderful. And we're thinking, how did that change? And we talked with one of the head nurses. And I remember she was telling us, yeah, we still don't completely understand it. And we still think you should have included this from day one. But we're using your tool to order the patients in terms of how sick they are and how much attention we need to pay for them. Because before it was just, we were doing it blindly. But now we know who's going to be in trouble, so we can have a more fair allocation of patients to the nurses. So now it's not one nurse getting all the hard patients. Because we have a better way of saying these are the hard patients, we're more fairly allocating the patients, and everyone's really happy because it's not one nurse taking on the burden, it's equally distributed.
Mm.
And we said that was not the intention of the tool, but we will take it. So wonderful. But if they didn't find that value, I think we would have had a hard time with our nurses.
We spoke about building trust, bringing stakeholders in from day one. But what about the public? How are you building trust with the public?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a very tricky question, too. And maybe I'll give you two examples. The first example is with the solution that predicts if somebody's going to die. We actually had patient consultations. So we actually had a couple of sessions with patients. And we asked them, we're developing this thing. Does it sound weird or creepy to you? Are you okay that something's monitoring you? And the response was, let me understand it a bit more. So we explained it a bit more. And they said, yeah, it's fine. And we said, when do you want to know that it's monitoring you? And they said, I don't need to know it's monitoring me until you change management.
Hmm.
So if you're going to do something different for me based on this AI prediction, you need to have a conversation with me. So that's what's in our protocol is that if you are going to do something different, change management, you have to have a conversation with the patient first and document it in the chart.
Hmm.
That's how we engage patients there. Now, on the flip side, we have a tool, an AI solution that to this day we have not deployed. And it's been challenging because this tool is supposed to help our emergency medicine physicians and our addictions team. It identifies people who are structurally vulnerable who are IV drug users. We have a lot of those in an inner city hospital. And these are patients who, they're wonderful people. They've had just some really bad stuff happen to them. And they have a 13 to 15-fold higher rate of mortality compared to the general population. They die often, unfortunately. How do you help them if you don't know who they are? So our addictions team says, we know the frequent flyers, but we don't know quite a few of them who may come in, and they don't tell us because there's issues with stigma. So we developed an AI solution that was over 80% accurate in identifying these patients in real time in our emergency department. Now, of course, we engage patients. The first set of patients we engaged said, absolutely not. How dare you identify me without my consent?
Mm.
And because there are stigma issues, I don't want people knowing. A few months later, we said, okay, we can't deploy this because it's going to be a violation of privacy and people are going to be very upset. A few months later, we had a second group of patients who said, of course you should be doing this. You should absolutely be helping me. I'm the one who needs help. So who do you believe? And is the public divided? And what do you do when the public is divided?
Mm.
Conservative hospital will say all you need is one or two patients going to the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail, and we have a major issue on our hands. So we didn't deploy it.
Is that an example of where responsible AI comes in?
Yes. We actually went through extensive processes around bias assessments and model performance. We thought the model actually worked reasonably well. The model itself, I think, was responsible. But that one piece around responsible AI, around patient engagement and acceptance, that failed more broadly. So while I don't know if it's most people would have been okay, just the ones we assess, They were split between do it and don't do it.
Why weren't you able to perhaps take out the data of the ones who didn't agree and focus on, okay, let's start from the beginning with those who have agreed, and that's our starting point?
That's a great question. The problem is when you're in the emergency department, you can't really assess everybody and get their consent because there's so many people waiting. It's chaos there. So you have to have the tool running in the background without people really knowing. And that's the issue, is that you've got an AI surveillance system that is broad. The alternative is there's a person who's dedicated 24/7 to say to every person who comes to the emergency department, we're going to be watching you if you see if you're an IV drug user. Are you okay with that? And they'll consent. And people come in with head trauma and they're not conscious. And how are you going to be able to do that logistically? It's really tough.
Now you almost have me saying there's some person out there saying, aha, that's why we shouldn't engage people at the beginning, tell people what we're doing, because it slows down things. And that's where I've heard, should I say excuses or reasons why some leaders may not give consent to saying, let's engage stakeholders early on in the project because they feel if we engage them right now, it's going to cause more disruption. Is what you shared not an example of people wanting to bypass that disruption? So let's just do it and implement it because if not,
Yeah. And we absolutely had people who said we should just deploy it because it's the right thing to do and it will save lives. But our approach has always been that we've got to engage end users and people affected by it. And if the very people who would benefit from this are saying no, even if it's a segment of it, I think you have to pause a little bit. There may be other situations where you say as a society, no, it's okay because the minority voice shouldn't rule the majority voice. But we didn't have a wholesome societal kind of survey around what people think. We're one single hospital in downtown Toronto. I wish it was a whole system saying we can get engage society in that discussion. It just wasn't practical or feasible.
at the risk of
Yes.
flogging a dead horse.
No.
Am I allowed to say dead horse? I don't know if it's politically correct. But at the risk of that, maybe over flogging this topic, I may have it wrong and correct me, but this is my understanding when it came to electric cars.
Yes.
Amazon, I believe, had been developing the electric car for a while,
For a
but
long time. Yes.
they identified some risks to putting it on.
Yes.
And just like what you just shared with us, they held back because of the
Yes.
identified risks. However, the leading electric car,
Yes.
let's not mention names, right?
Right. Yes.
Leading electric car manufacturer, from my understanding and the research and what I read, identifies this same risk. We're like, hey, let's build it as we go along. Let's put it out there. Risks are identified, but let's just go ahead and do it anyway. So you had Amazon wanting to be very responsible, even though they could have been seen as pioneers
Yes.
in it. That sounds
Absolutely.
like the same dilemma.
Yes, it is really, really similar. And I mean, part of me says maybe we should have went ahead regardless. But I think a conservative hospital organization,
Yes.
you don't err on the side of caution. And that's where I think a certain dilemma is right now,
Mm,
is how conservative are we going to be? How do we balance responsible AI from innovation?
mm.
The more restrictive and conservative you are, the more you push for responsible AI, you will slow the innovation down. But the more reckless you are, the more harm you can cause to society. So we have to have some sort of balance.
The
And
guardrails we're
often,
talking about.
yes, and often we don't know what that balance is. And we're just trying to feel our way through.
I know, and you know what they're going to say.
Yes.
Hindsight is 2020, right? You're going
Yes,
to.
exactly. Now, honestly, I'm more on the side of the electric car manufacturer who's the leading one who just says, let's take calculated risks and let's move and we'll learn from any mistakes. I'm very much on that more innovator side. But unfortunately, we belong to larger organizations that have much more to lose.
Yes. And isn't that always the case when you're driving change? Leaders, give or take, there's the risk they're thinking about, reputational risks, and quite
Yes.
rightly, some of these things should be thought about. Which leads me to the next question on my mind as we talk is, what are the different skills and mindsets we should be thinking about? You alluded to one earlier when you said, I'm framing it in my own words, that everybody needs to be a change leader. Everybody needs to have that mindset of change and leading and driving change, and it shouldn't rest on the responsibility of one person or stop the other person. Let's dig into that a little bit. And you think about the younger generation, you think about not just the younger generation, you think about us right now, and you think about policymakers, you think about people making decisions in organizations. What are the evolving and new mindsets and skills that we need to start to think about, and the ones that we absolutely need to put aside and say, stop already?
Right. I think in terms of skill sets, especially when it comes to technology, it is going to be about learning about basic technology. I think we need to up our skill sets at that end. So basic AI literacy, for example, should happen, has to happen.
Describe what you mean by basic AI literacy, because
Yeah.
that's very broad. Is it just about prompt engineering? Okay, I use prompt engineering, and I'll let you explain what prompt engineering is.
Yeah.
What do you describe as basic AI literacy?
So basic AI literacy, it's funny how if you ask a lot of people, what is AI? They'll struggle, right? So understanding what basic definitions of AI are. So what is it? What is machine learning? How's it different from deep learning? What about agentic AI versus multimodal AI versus generative AI? What are the differences between those three? Having that understanding of what this is what generative AI does. What's the foundations of how a model learns? What are the challenges?
Are you calling all of this basic?
Basic to moderate. I would say that. But I do think we need to know.
You had me at what does AI mean? Then that's going to all of this, and I'm like, that's not basic anymore.
Well, the problem is that this field evolves so quickly. And so I'll give you an example. You've learned about ChatGPT. ChatGPT can now start automating things for you. It's fully capable of if you said, I feel like going to London, England, or London, UK for the weekend. Book me a flight from departing tomorrow and coming back on Tuesday and an itinerary. It will actually literally go look for the cheapest flight because it knows your preferences, or business class, or whatever your preference is. It will actually then set your itinerary for you, book the hotel, and have everything ready for you. That's called agentic AI.
I love how you explained that. Thank you.
I would love to go on a trip myself, but that's agentic AI. Now, understanding that you didn't specify London, UK, and it took you to London, Ontario, maybe you didn't want the agent to do that. And maybe the prompt engineering wasn't specific enough of what you've typed in. But understanding those terminologies and why it's important helps you understand where you can and can't use it and where you're not going to see good success.
I personally think that basic AI is understanding what artificial intelligence is. It's understanding prompts. What does it mean to do a prompt? Because the more you understand how to do a prompt, like you mentioned earlier, the less hallucinations you get. And I like the agentic AI aspect of it. The way I've been using it recently is send me alerts on cryptocurrency. I know when there's a real big dip and when there's a high.
Right.
And it's sending me alerts in the morning. I'm like, okay, enough already.
That's right.
There's so much we can do. And people think AI is ChatGPT. So kudos to OpenAI to have really captured the market. Sometimes I say generative AI, aka ChatGPT.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But people need to understand what that is. Even things like hallucinations, how often do they occur? And when we take a look at predictive algorithms, positive predictive value or precision, how often does it get it wrong? Terminology like that. That I consider is what I think a lot of people need to understand. So I'm not saying figure out the architecture of a neural network and understand what hidden layers are. No. But understanding these basic concepts would be really, really important, I think.
Basic concepts. And you know what? It's feeling non-basic right now, But I can
Yes.
imagine that in a few years, it's going to be terminologies that is being thrown around.
Absolutely.
Yesterday, I heard the word vibe coding, and
Oh, yes.
that was the phrase or the word of the year introduced
Yes.
into the dictionary. And there I am going to Google what's vibe coding. But now I've
Yes.
been educated, and I can imagine the amount of people who have been educated on vibe coding. Because if everybody's hearing this on the news, that vibe coding is the word of the year, most people are going to go educate themselves on what does vibe coding mean. And
Yes.
that's slowly how we begin to become more comfortable with, in quotes, some of those technical terms. What are the skills should we be looking at other than the basic introduction to AI?
Yeah. Understanding things like performance metrics. So AI literacy is one, but number two, it is going to be about change management. Proper change management and leadership is going to be important. Aside from the skills, I think we also just have to get a sense of courage. So if we're constantly afraid because we don't understand it or know, we're not going to be courageous enough. We're going to look for excuses to not use it because consciously or subconsciously we're afraid of it because of our ignorance, because we don't understand it. But if we really deeply understand it, what it can do and the potential for it, we'll have the courage to say, all right, we've talked about data governance for a year, 2 years, 3 years, enough. Let's actually do this, see how it works. And we know the guardrails, we put in our safety parameters around it. Let's just start using it to see how it does.
Do you think organizations are becoming more courageous because there's more adoption?
I don't know if it's courageous because that's who they are or courageous by necessity.
Yeah, so that's no longer courage if it's by necessity.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
almost cowardice, right? Because then you're forced to do it because you're too afraid earlier. And the reason why is because we're seeing societal adoption, right? So there was a survey that was done recently in the United States that surveyed a whole bunch of youth. And it asked them, do you use an AI companion? So not a chatbot, but an actual companion that you regularly converse with and you confide in. 73% said yes.
What age group was this?
This was youth. This was adolescence. Now, this is all coming. This is our society that's going to be where we are in the next 10, 20 years.
Okay, I'm split on that one. And the
Mhm.
only reason I'm split on it is I see how dangerous it can be.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm saying to myself, how different is that me chatting to AI, my chat GPT, because there's a voice functionality and I'm asking it questions to say, even though it's business related questions, I literally have conversations with it. And I appreciate those conversations. I can just talk, it talk back at me. But I've never looked at that as an AI companion. But that's not far out to what some people would consider AI companions, right? Even though I'm using it in a business sense.
This is exactly it. The definition of companion can be a bit fluid, right? Now, I think the way they were describing it was you basically confide in it. You're confiding some of your financial information to it. You're confiding a whole bunch of other things around how you're feeling. Like it'll ask you, how are you feeling today? And you'll be able to tell it. And it'll respond in a very empathetic way and make you feel good.
Yes, we talk about how to build trust. That's how AI is building
Yes.
trust with people.
It is. And then it will tell you things that you like because it wants to be your friend.
And it to tell you things it knows about you already because
Yes,
you've already previously shared information with it. It knows you
absolutely.
well.
Absolutely. And it'll actually talk to you in the way you want to. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and it says words like low key. It says words that I can barely pronounce. That is in her kind of style of talking. It will adapt to them because it knows you.
Wow, that's dangerous.
Well, it can be, right? So, what I worry about,
Okay, like you corrected me, it can be.
yes, well, what I worry about are the adolescents knowledgeable enough about AI to understand its potential dangers? I think in the next 10, 20 years, they will be, because my hope is that AI will now, just like we're being taught mathematics in kindergarten or in grade one, AI will be taught.
I like the sound of that. I like that as basics. I
Yeah.
think that's really important because right now, Our generation as adults, when I was in university, you weren't using laptops, right? That was when they were telling you about information technology. Everything was literally new. I always age myself on this podcast when I talk about my university.
Oh,
But
but
we have critical thinking skills. So
yes,
when we're faced with something like AI now, we can apply those critical thinking skills to how we use it. We have inbuilt guardrails.
yes, absolutely.
I don't know that the younger generation that is being exposed to it while they're still in development of their critical thinking skills can apply the right type of critical thinking skills. So going back to the very beginning and bringing it full circle is how are we going to start making this part and parcel? How we're building
Yes,
critical thinking right into the school system. And we're looking at the
yes,
curriculum. We spoke about how education is changing. What are the key skills we're building into the curriculum right now? Because how we do life is going to have AI. It's going to be the same thing like having a phone, having a laptop.
yes,
So how we building those skills to, unfortunately, let's call a spade, how we're going to live alongside and walk alongside AI.
absolutely. And this, I think, is the greatest challenge of our society today, is that we have this kind of now interim society that
Mm,
hasn't been educated on AI, that may not have the AI literacy, that is now 73% of our youth are confiding in AI
mm,
without that knowledge.
mm,
That can be dangerous if they're not careful.
mm.
If we're responsible, we then start educating right from kindergarten about AI. We build in critical thinking around AI right from scratch. We haven't done that with our current youth.
Mm.
And so are they thinking about it in a realistic way, in a way that where they're critically thinking about how am I using it and not using it? We don't have that education in place yet.
And we need to
Because
do it
for our
fast.
grandkids,
Mm.
the way they're going to be raised, I can see this, at least this is what I would think, is from their crib. It may not be their father or mother who comes to them when they're crying. It may be their house robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be the house robot or the self-driving car that takes them to school. It may be the robot or the home robot that takes them for a walk. So they're going to be engaging in it at a much earlier age in a more profound way. And if we're not educating right from the beginning, they're going to feel that they're more closer to the AI than they are their parents.
Wow. Wow. We have unpacked so much. I told you that we could geek out on this. It's just been a wonderful conversation. Two questions as I round this up that I love to ask all of my guests right now. One is, how are you feeling right now? We're no doubt living in unprecedented change. You are one of the drivers of unprecedented change. There is so much geopolitical issues, socio-economic issues. So much is happening around us. When you think about the current state of the world, how are you personally feeling?
I think I'm excited, terrified, where I see the potential for so much benefit. I think the next 10, 20 years are going to be pretty telling in terms of how we embrace it, how we don't embrace it. The next 30 to 50 years, I think it's going to be just part of what we do every day. It already is heading in that direction, even more so, where I do see the advances in robotics and such is going to be incredible. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but it will get there. If we're not directing its development
Mm,
or having proper oversight of its development, that's where I'm terrified it can be catastrophic.
mm,
So I would say that's why I'm so much focused on AI literacy.
mm.
Let's really understand this. Let's build frameworks around it where we're not stifling innovation to the point where we're really slowing things down, but we're doing it in a calculated, responsible way
Mm.
that we can use AI to help society rather than hurt us.
My second question for you to complete a sentence.
Okay.
The sentence is, the future of AI is.
Transformative.
Transform.
It's a cliche word, but I really do think it's going to be akin to a revolution. We've had a few revolutions in the past. And I would say a few years ago, I was a bit skeptical about generative AI and large language models. I was thinking, oh, it's cute. Will it really evolve? I've been so impressed with the rate of growth and the rate of capability of these things. And we're actually right now at a point where we're holding it back and limiting what it can do. ChatGPT 5.0 is very limited intentionally. It's much more capable and powerful, but we're
I
not
heard it's
letting
going to be
it out.
called 6-7. That's a new term, apparently. It's just like low key. Apparently, 6-7 is a word now. Don't ask me what 6-7 means because nobody can actually define what 6-7 means.
And it's supposed to be considerably better now. Could you imagine what's going to happen in 10 years?
We've spoken about many topics today. We've indeed had a conversation. If there was one thing you wanted anybody listening right now to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
Learn. Learn as much as you can. Don't let ignorance guide you and say, this is not going to affect me. Don't let arrogance guide you to say, I already know about this. There's so much we don't know. Just learn. The more we learn, the more we understand, the more we can have ownership, control, and direction over it. That's where we can start seeing the benefits in the way we want to see it.
I love that. Dr. Mamdani, it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for saying yes and being a guest.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for having me, Yvonne. It's been such a pleasure. And incredible questions, very insightful. So thank you for helping me think a lot more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Change Leadership Conversations. Be sure to hit the follow button, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your team or fellow change leaders, because leading change is better when we do it together.